Okay, so 9.3 starts on page 447, and we are going to look at what are the properties of rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. So the first thing that we notice is it talks about a rectangle right here. A rectangle is a quadrilateral with 4 right angles, and you can see that there. And that is it on that page. So turn the page. And it says property of rectangles. If a quadrilateral is a rectangle, then it's a parallelogram. And if a parallelogram is a rectangle, then its diagonals are congruent. And we will talk more about those properties tomorrow when we do the flow chart. And the same on the next page. You have your properties here at the top. And first off, it says a rhombus is a quadrilateral with 4 congruent sides, and it shows the picture there. And you have your properties of rhombuses. If a quadrilateral is a rhombus, then it's a parallelogram. Parallelogram is a rhombus, then its diagonals are perpendicular, okay? That's a change from what we've been saying. Perpendicular instead of bisectors, right? And if a parallelogram is a rhombus, then each diagonal bisects a pair of opposite angles, okay? So those are the differences in the rhombus. And then on page 450, okay, so now we're going to look at the problems. This is on page 450. And let's look at B. If we need to, we can read through A in class tomorrow. But B says find Y, V, W. And so it wants us to find this angle right here. Y, V, W. And we know that the diagonals of a rhombus are perpendicular, okay? So it says WZX is a right angle, okay, right here. Whoops. That's a right angle. All those are right angles. And so the measure of WZX equals 90 degrees. And since the measure of WZX equals 3n squared minus 0.75, then we know that we can set that equal to 90 degrees. And we can solve it and get a 5.5. Now, if you need to know how to solve that thing, if you need a refresher, we'll talk about it tomorrow in class. And then we can put 5.5 in for n. And we get 9 times 5.5 plus 4, and that is going to equal what, 53.5. Might want to check my math there, degrees. And because we know that this diagonal up here bisects the angle, then that's half. And so if we multiply that by 2 or add it to it again, we get 107 degrees. Okay? So let's look down at 10. And it says, use it from example 3 to find each measure. I think instead of doing this in the video, I'm gonna wait and do these two in class tomorrow, so we can actually talk a little bit more about them, okay? Than I can in the video. So now I want you to turn to page 459. And it's 9.4, and it's conditions for rectangles, rhombuses, and squares. And it says, the essential question here says, how can you use given conditions to show that a quadrilateral is a rectangle, a rhombus, or a square? And one of the things that we're going to have to make sure we do a good job of tomorrow is writing out what the difference is between a rectangle, a rhombus, and a square are. So if you turn to page 461, the next page, it talks about conditions for rectangles, okay? If one angle of a parallelogram is a right angle, then the parallelogram is a rectangle. And if the diagonals of a parallelogram are congruent, then the parallelogram is a rectangle. And then on the next page, it has more. It has the rhombus, conditions for rhombuses. And and you can read through those just as easily as I can read them to you. And that is what we're going to have to put in a chart and gather the information in such a way that it makes it easy to see just what the differences between those things are. And so tomorrow we'll work on the flow chart, and then we'll work on some work regarding rhombuses, squares, and rectangles. See you tomorrow.